Draymond was ejected from the game less than 4 minutes into the game. That might be his personal record after picking up 2 technical fouls for arguing with the officials. I wonder, do we have the video of that, Aaron?
Draymond's got to be careful here. Yeah. He already down Kuminga. Well, Steph got 1T early. Steve just took a timeout, and you want to get away from Ray Acosta so this doesn't grow.
You got multiple guys from the Warriors bench just coming over just to make sure Draymond doesn't go over the line here. You got to watch out. He's letting them hear it. The officials are kind of letting him speak and say his piece. He got another tag.
AZ's gone. He just got ejected. With 8:24 remaining in the first.
That's a huge blow in this type of game
against this team.
Well, making sure he didn't go over the line didn't work because he went over the line and he got ejected. But the bigger storyline is not so much Draymond's ejection, but more so Steph Curry's reaction. Check this out. I mean, it is pretty dramatic. You know, he obviously looked very distraught. He obviously looked very frustrated. Some people were kind of, arguing whether or not he was crying. But his post-game comments were probably the most revealing on his true feelings on the matter. Let's take a listen.
What did you think of the Draymond ejection?
All I say is we need him. He knows that. We all know that. So whatever it takes to keep him on the floor, and be available, that's what's got to happen. Especially at this point in the year. So it's a tough way to start the game, but I am extremely proud of every single person that stepped foot on the floor tonight and responded the way that they did, because back to back, the team as physical as they are, we got contributions from everybody, and it was a beautiful team effort to respond the way that we did and get this win, because we went and took it, and that's a big sign for us, a sign of growth, to be able to respond that way.
The camera showed you pretty frustrated when he did get ejected. Are you just thinking at that time what you just said, essentially?
Yeah, we know how important the season is, or this part of the season is, and our ability to get into a rhythm and secure a playing opportunity and give ourselves a shot. You don't want to have self-inflicted wounds when it comes to that. And we all care. We all are passionate about the game and our chances to have something to play for down the stretch. So you give everything you got to this game, and that's the emotion.
A lot to unpack here. I mean, obviously, Steph, kind of a master of his words, didn't come out and just, fully blame Draymond, which I feel like a lot of people wouldn't have blamed him if he had done so. It was more of like, he can't do that. He knows we need them. But on the plus side, I'm very happy that our team was able to pull out a win. But I think the bigger, conversation here is Draymond's inability to put the team first a lot of these times, and just how much of a domino effect it is. In this situation, it didn't matter because they still got the win. But there are a lot of situations where that will not be the case, and that has not been the case. And you have to feel for Steph, because he's not, he's not as vocal, maybe as rough and tough as some other players would have been on Draymond. I think he really tries to give Draymond the benefit of the doubt. But with all relationships, there's got to be a breaking point. And you can kind of see that breaking point happening in real time on the court, where he's visibly frustrated, almost to the point of tears.
Past the breaking point, right? I mean, look, this was an all-timer even for Draymond. He got tossed out of a game in under 4 minutes, arguing a call that he wasn't even involved in. Like, as Draymond taught, like, look, you put Rudy Gobert in a headlock, that's one thing, right? Or you like roundhouse slap Yusuf Nurkic, that's one thing. But he got tossed for something that he wasn't even involved in, and the game had barely started. Producer Aaron, a well-known longtime Warriors fan, was beside himself, as was Steph. I mean, we saw his reaction afterwards. For those who aren't watching on YouTube, I mean, he was like, he put his head down, he put his head in his jersey. Kerr came over to console him. And you're right, Ash, it didn't hurt them last night. They did end up beating a Magic team that's a really good defensive team. and has been all season long. And good for them and good for Curry for putting them on his back, but they shouldn't be in that situation. I was on HQ last night with Bill. We were talking about it, and Bill's like, Draymond's a problem. The problem, though, is that Draymond is also the answer. When Draymond's on the court for them, he unlocks so many different things. And that's why it's so frustrating for these guys, because when he's out there and he's not being Draymond, he's just playing basketball, he unlocks so many things for this team. And when he's not out there, it is a huge problem for them. And it was again last night, even though they won.
I think it's also frustrating because it's like you kind of expect at some point that Draymond will get it. And it's not to say it's not to say that he needs to change, right? Because to your point, one of Draymond's best assets as a defensive player is kind of his unruliness. It's kind of his, his lack of predictability, if you will. It's his ability to be unpredictable. It's his ability to do the things, get down and dirty if he has to. But with that talent also comes the responsibility of kind of figuring out how to filter it and how to utilize it. And you would think after the Jordan Poole situation and how that was just a domino effect to the rest of the team, that maybe he would have figured it out. After the Rudy Gobert, chokehold, not chokehold, depending on where you are in that argument. And he went ahead and did all this work that the NBA made him do. And he came back and he says, I have to be better. I have to do better. And for a while, you saw glimmers of that. And then he does something like this where, to your point, it didn't even involve you. Like, you could have just stayed out of it. And you even see in the video of Steph kind of like walking up to him and, like, I believe tapping him on the side, like, come on, like, don't do this. And he does it anyway.
It was useless. And I want to be clear here. The antics is not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about him being beneficial to that team. What I'm talking about, I mean, yes, sure. Like, can he get in guys' heads and talk and jaw and whatever? Fine. I think that's of middling value, if any. What I'm talking about is he unlocks that team the way he plays basketball. He is an otherworldly passer. He sees the court so very well. He's awesome in transition. He's an awesome rebounder. He's an excellent defender, probably their best defender, 1 through 5. He can do so many different things. He can be point Draymond at times. The way he plays basketball, I love watching him play, but the nonsense is where I take my leave and where they clearly take their leave too. Last night was of zero value. None. He didn't provide, like, sometimes when he's doing stuff and you're like, okay, I guess maybe he's kind of getting in somebody's head. Again, that's not really for me. And you could make an argument about it. Last night, there's no argument. That was completely and utterly useless. And that's the kind of thing where, he goes, oh, I'm going to take some time away. I'm going to learn my lesson, whatever. He's never going to learn his lesson. Yeah. It's never been learned. There's been a zillion lessons and zero things learned from them.
There's a few things there's a lot of things that are worrisome about this. I mean, for starters, you go back to the conversation that Kerr was having with the media, and a lot of people were kind of on the fence about, there was, 50-50, depending on what side of the argument you were on, when he was talking about, look, I'm not going to go ahead and play Steph 33 minutes instead of 30, because if that 3 really makes a difference, we have bigger problems. And then something like this happens, and you realize why Steph has to be rode so hard in this team, on this team, is because things like this happen. And if Chris Paul, if Steph Curry, a guy you have played with your entire career, you have won championships with, you've been to the top of the mountaintop, you know what he has meant to this team, you know what he has sacrificed for this team. If that is not enough to calm you down and to get you to see the bigger picture of things, the window closes every single year these guys get older. If that is not enough for Draymond to take a step back and say, Steph doesn't deserve this. If anybody on that team doesn't deserve it, it's Steph Curry. That's not enough. That's a huge problem. Like, that means that you are such a selfish player that nothing else in that point, in that period of time, matters except you getting your point across. And that's a problem.
Never has mattered, never will matter. And Steph is a saint. I mean, he really is.
He's better than me. He's had
there is a 0% chance that I would keep my mouth shut in year whatever this is of Draymond being Draymond. Like, going back to, what is it now, 8 years ago, when during the finals, he ended up, basically punching LeBron in his area. Like, there's been so many incidents where you're like, Draymond, what are you doing, man? You're killing us. Like, you're such a good basketball player. Just stick to that. And everybody's tried it, right? Kerr's tried it. Steph has certainly tried it. The league has tried it. Adam Silver has tried it. The media has tried it. It's never going to change. It's always going to be that this is the way he is, and it's a detriment to this team. And yeah, Steph is an absolute saint. I would have sounded off on him many, many times years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's just another tier to this level of drama because as we have been talking about for the past few weeks now, the Rockets are right behind the Warriors for that last play-in spot. So it just adds another insult to injury where you see Draymond kind of acting a fool in a game that either could have gone either way when, one of your best players is off the court. And once again, the responsibility is on Steph Curry's shoulder to kind of lead the ship.